Hello and welcome to the Armenian News Network Groong Weekend Review. I'm Asbed Bedrossian, and along with Hovik Manucharyan, this week we're going to talk about the following major topics: Azerbaijan's incursion into Syunik, Lavrov's visit to Yerevan and Baku, and electoral politics.
And to talk about these issues, we have with us Tatul Hakobyan, who is the coordinator of the Ani Research Center, which focuses on contemporary Armenian issues. He's a columnist at Alik Media and author of 3 books: Karabakh Diary, Green and Black, Armenians and Turks, and his most recent book, The Valley of Death. Emil Sanamyan, who's a senior research fellow at USC's Institute of Armenian Studies, specializing in politics in the Caucasus, and Dr. Artyom Tonoyan, who's a research associate at the University of Minnesota Center for Holocaust and Genocide Studies, with specialties in religion and politics and nationalism in the South Caucasus and Russia. Hello and welcome, everyone.
Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, thank you for having us.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. And we're happy to have Tatul join us for the first time. So let's just begin with the most major news in the Armenian world this week: Azerbaijan's incursion into Syunik and Gegarkunik. So earlier this week, the Azerbaijani army crossed into Armenia in 3 different locations on the eastern, internationally recognized quote-unquote border with Azerbaijan. The most widely reported incursion was in Syunik, with Azerbaijan penetrating 2.5 kilometers deep into Armenia around Mount Met Ishanasar and the adjacent Sev Lake area. Or Black Lake in English. In the Gegarkunik province in the north, Azerbaijan is reported to have advanced in the upper Shorja by 2 kilometers and also Kut village by also 1.5 to 2 kilometers. So in the south, just in terms of land area, in the south, George Tabakian, who's a regular guest of ours, estimated that Armenia lost around 1,200 hectares of land. And in Verin Shorja, Razminfo had estimated about 1,500 hectares. Altogether, according to Hrant Mikhaelian, around 4,000 hectares of land. Just in terms of comparison, that's more than 50% of Glendale and about 10 times as much land as was lost during the April 2016 war. And this comes after months of complaints that the borders of the Syunik region were not guarded or barely even maintained. The entire week before this, on May 5, Edgar Elbakian, based on a video publicized by Azerbaijanis themselves, sounded alarm bells, saying that Soviet maps show that we have 70% of Sev Lake, but the enemy video showed that they already have full control of the lake. So to begin with, Artyom, as an observer of Armenian news, what is your impression of the events and what's happening this week? First, as they happened initially, and now as we're slowly getting more and more information about it.
My impression is that the Armenian government once again has let down the people of Armenia, which is not news, and also the Pashinyan administration has proven once again its inadequacy in dealing with the problems that have been telegraphed by Aliyev. Pashinyan has pretty much used all his diplomatic muster in trying to control the situation on the ground. Whether it has been successful is, according to the reports, it has not been successful so far. So where do we go from here is anyone's guess, really. Pashinyan needs to step up his game or really stay away from this game, because it looks like, you have a cocksure Azerbaijani president and a headless chicken, really, Armenian prime minister, or a prime minister that is pro-tem prime minister. It's a prime minister that really hasn't realized that the head of the chicken has been cut off and that the chicken's head and chicken's torso have parted ways, never to come back together. So it's a very precarious situation. And I don't think Armenia has the wherewithal or the ability, and the more I see, even the will to deal with this situation in any adequate form that really pushes back on Azerbaijan's encroachments.
Tatul, I wanted to ask you, you've been at the forefront covering the war and its aftermath. What are your impressions? And in general, what do you think about Azerbaijan's motivations in doing this?
Well, first of all, thank you again for inviting me, for having me. First of all, I want to emphasize that I don't think that Nikol Pashinyan is a traitor. He's not a traitor, but we should understand that every day staying in power is a disaster for Armenia. We'll face new disasters. Azerbaijan prepared for this war for a long time, and they started a war, and with the help of Turkey, they crushed Armenian army, and they crushed us, unfortunately. So now we have a situation, and I can compare this situation of 1920s, when Kemalist Turkey invaded Kars, then crossed the Ahurian and Araxes rivers, and then occupy Alexandropol, at that time the biggest city in Republic of Armenia. Although capital was in Yerevan, but Alexandropol, today's Gyumri, was the biggest city. So the same happened after 100 years later. So now we are in a situation when we can't do nothing. We are the only factor which prevents attacks and other, incursions, is Russian presence in Armenia. Otherwise, I think that Turkey and Azerbaijan probably will go more and more and occupy also Syunik region of Armenia. So, what is the purposes of Azerbaijan last incursions, as you mentioned, in Goris, Sisyan, and Varteniz Gegarkunik region? I think there are several factors. First of all, I think that Baku is trying to have access through Armenia's territory to Nakhichevan, and he's trying to show that if Armenians will say no, that access or sovereign passage, I have no information what kind of talks are going on concerning this issue. But for me, it's very clear that they are trying push and pressure this Armenian, the weak government, to have sovereign passage which will connect Azerbaijan with Nakhichevan. Second, I think Baku is trying to have best positions before a demarcation and demilitation process will start between Republic of Armenia and Republic of Azerbaijan. Third one, I think Baku is trying to create a new agenda for Armenians. What I want to say, now for Armenians, for Armenia, the main issue on the agenda is the up to 200 Armenians in prisons in Azerbaijan. So they are creating new and new situations for Armenia in order to let Armenians forget about Armenian captives in Baku. So I can, of course, go more and say another issues, but I would like to stop here and then continue again.
While Baku is claiming to be negotiating, its actions indicate that it's actually entrenching in the region. Another one of the reasons mentioned, and every analyst nowadays, is bringing up all the potential reasons why Baku would do this. I would like to just mention Suren Sarkisyan, who hypothesized that Turkey may be behind this in order to discredit Russia and force the Russian military out of the region as a long-term strategy. So, Emil, welcome, and I wanted to ask you, we have what we have today. What are Armenians' options to get out of this situation?
Well, the previous speakers, Artyom and Tatul, of course, gave a pretty broad tour of the horizon. I would just say, I think for anybody with any interest in this issue, it's pretty clear that the current government is inadequate and incapable of positively influencing the situation, mobilizing public support. And when that's the case, I think the onus kind of shifts on everybody else. And I'm reluctant to say it, but I have to say it. It seems that the people of Armenia, Armenian citizens, just think that their country is too big for them. They can't have a country that big. So they want a smaller country, and that's what's happening. It was not a surprise that without a peace agreement with Azerbaijan, the conflict with Azerbaijan is continuing. It's just continuing along different lines of contact. We, over many decades now, or several decades now, we have had a situation where even on the, say, Nakhchivan border, where there was no major fighting since 1992, we've had areas of Soviet-era Armenia under Azerbaijani control and Soviet-era Nakhchivan under Armenian control. So it's always been about the extent of control. So at this point, there is really, aside from Russian forces, there is no impediment for that line of control to, I don't know, run through Charbakh or some other area close to Yerevan. And that might still happen unless there is some kind of a rebellion inside Armenia and there is a new government that is concerned about this. And there is a new organization that can organize self-defense of Armenia and sort of shift the line back to some extent.
What would realizing that the current government is not doing everything, what would be the new government's response to this?
It would have to be very harsh measures as far as mobilization of resources, as far as a mobilization of forces, and actually starting to take aggressive steps towards Azerbaijan. That's the only way to. That has been the only way to deter Azerbaijan from making inroads into Armenian-controlled territories when there was a retaliation. Of course, we have Turkey, but we also have Russia. I mean, there's no way to do this otherwise. I don't see any other. As long as we have Aliyev as the leader of Azerbaijan and the policies that he's pursued, he feels that he's been successful in them, and there is really no legitimate, rational reason he would stop.
Tatul earlier said that in the war, the Armenian army was smashed. Is the Armenian army incapable of organizing a response to this, or is it mostly the leadership?
Armenian army is obviously also incapable. However, that doesn't mean that there's not enough, there was no Chechen army when the Russian forces came into Chechnya, but Chechens organized and resisted. There was no Abkhaz army or Ossetian army. There was no Karabakh army when Karabakh was invaded by Azerbaijan, but Armenians in Karabakh were able to organize and resist. Right now, we don't have that. We have both in Karabakh and in Yerevan governments who are kind of clinging to some semblance of normalcy. As long as they're sitting in front of a camera in a nice office, things are okay, and it doesn't matter that the line. The enemy is basically at the gates, and there's no future for the country that I can see.
Tatul, are you seeing any signs of mobilization or any signs that militarily Armenia is moving anywhere?
Hovik, first of all, I think that we'll have that kind of mobilization until we have Nikol Pashinyan and this team in the governance. Nikol Pashinyan and his team is a symbol of our defeat. And in the fourth or fifth day in Karabakh, I understand that we are going to lose this war. The 10th day, I write my colleagues in Yerevan via messenger, email, saying that at this moment, this government should resign. I understand that this government can't do anything. For me, it was clear that we'll lose this war, but losing the war in this manner, I can't imagine in a nightmare even. That's why I thought that Nikol Pashinyan should resign in the middle of the battles in the middle of October. So after he signed that capitulation agreement, from that day, every day I'm saying that I'm writing that Nikol Pashinyan and his team should resign. But we see that now they have support, and according to last survey, they have at least 30%. But I think after the events, after the Azerbaijani incursions in three directions, I think they are losing very rapidly their popularity every day, and we don't know what kind of political situation we will have before the June 20 elections. So coming back, I think that because Nikol and his team is a symbol of defeat, first of all, we should change this government and then to mobilize, as Emil said. But also we should understand that now around us we have a very strong Turkey and victorious Azerbaijan, unfortunately, and the demoralized Armenian society, demoralized Armenian army. And in this situation, I can't blame Armenians living in Armenia.
Right.
I think we are in a situation when we have no friends. We have no friends nowhere. We have no friends. I'm sorry to say that we thought that Russia will come and help us, diaspora will come and help us, And now we see that we are alone, unfortunately.
If I can just add, this was exactly the situation. There's a change in the Russian role, but this is exactly the situation that was in the early 90s, and it was a worse situation, of course. People were, in a much more dire economic situation in Armenia, but it did not prevent mobilization. It's about the sort of leaders that end up taking charge, and really, I have to say, all of this situation just shows the importance of just a few figures that, like Robert Kocharian, like Vazgen Sargsyan, like Vazgen Manucharyan, that at the time in the 90s were able to organize people under them, and how crucial that role is. And we don't have that kind of leadership right now, and I don't know if Kocharian is going to come to power, and if he does, if he's still capable of being the same sort of leader as he was in the early 90s, but it just shows how crucial in a small country like Armenia the role of a few individuals is.
We talked about mobilization, but even any signs of life from the army would be good at this point. I don't want to speculate or go into conspiracy theories, but some are legitimately questioning how could the enemy go into 3.5 kilometers in without being noticed only by shepherds. But anyway, let's analyze a little bit the government's response so far. As depressing as that may be, in the aftermath of the events, Armenia's response was initially muted. Towards the evening of that day, I believe it was Tuesday, there was a meeting of the National Security Council, and after midnight, Pashinyan made an announcement where he finally confirmed the incursion. But his response was sort of mild, to me at least. He said that Armenia wouldn't tolerate this, but at the same time, he went to lengths to explain why Azerbaijan attacked and why Azerbaijan came on sovereign Armenia territory. Apparently using fake maps as a pretense. I don't know why he needed to explain that to the whole nation, but he sort of tried to paint it as a disagreement, on maps, even though, and I said, we believe that it's fake. The following day, there was another meeting, and this time it was a more serious announcement by the National Security Council, and Pashinyan indicated that it would appeal to different international organizations, including CSTO, but also, it said, we would like Azerbaijan to leave just as they came in. Meanwhile, the defense ministry, I think, is just content on reporting the status of the Azerbaijani forces without any action itself. Today they confirmed that the Azerbaijanis are still there, for instance. Emil, there are some that argue that Armenia's response was appropriate. I've seen some Facebook posts from different scholars in the diaspora, and that gives us a diplomatic advantage now, that we can use. What do you think?
I don't agree with that. That's about it. I mean, there is really no need to analyze the response of the Armenian government. The Armenian government reminds me of this Facebook discussion group where you have the main moderator, Pashinyan, and then he has his flunkies. And all they do is just discuss stuff on Facebook. That's it. I mean, it's a virtual government. I don't see an actual physical bearing on the events on the ground from this group. It's really proved to be a very, very bad experiment. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, if I may jump in, the things are, we can analyze and so on and so forth, spend a lot of hours on this, but the things are much more simpler. Azerbaijan has a game plan. Armenia doesn't. And Azerbaijan has a leadership with a strategic vision, with tactical abilities and strategic abilities, being helped by Turkey and so on and so forth. Armenia lacks any of this on so many situations. Having Russia, yes, has treaty obligations, and there is CSTO, but the way both CSTO have been treated, and both Russian interests have been treated, and Russian interests and CSTO interests have been engaged by the current Armenian government, is one of the reasons we find ourselves in a situation like this. And so when we talk about leadership, echoing Emil's previous comment, is that the Armenian government, in its capacity right now, with the figureheads that are leading the government, are completely and totally unable, unprepared, and probably unwilling to engage Russia and even Turkey the way that is positive for Armenia's interests. This government, is completely, the way they responded to this, incursions has shown its complete inutility, uselessness, really.
One thing I have to disagree with Artyom is that there is any game plan on Azerbaijan's side. I just don't see any evidence of a game plan. I think basically they see empty space and they move into it. We have to realize that Azerbaijan is a family-run dictatorship. It's a family substantially divorced from the life of Azerbaijan. They have their own life. It's sort of, again, they live in the virtual world, but things aligned in a way that they could benefit from. They got major support from Turkey. They got neutrality from Russia. And of course, they do have military capacity, but you have to realize this is a country that removed its chief military officer during a war, and still it had no effect. To this day, they haven't replaced the chief military officer. To this day, they don't have a chain of command in the military there.
So,
It's
Emil,
substantially.
do you think that the current moves by Azerbaijan are against the national interests of Azerbaijan, but maybe in the
I
interests
don't
of the
know.
Aliyev
It's
family?
arguable what national interest of Azerbaijan is. What I'm telling you is that what Azerbaijan is doing today is exactly what they were doing every spring or summer over the past 25 years. The snows melted and the heights would open up and they would try to take advantage. It's just, except Armenian side was also doing the same thing before, mostly on the Karabakh, Murav range. They would try to occupy positions in this April to June period. Snow just melted in Karvajar area, that area. So this happened every single year since the ceasefire, and there is no surprise that it would continue to happen because, again, especially this new line along the eastern side of Gehar-Kunik, Vayodzor, and Syunik is basically unprotected. There's a lot of open space, so they just moved into that open space. It's not a huge. You don't need to be a strategic thinker of any kind to be able to do something like this. It's a matter of putting people in the truck and going up that road, whatever road there might be. Yes, they might use a little drone here and there, whatever. But what they've done, and it created this sort of another sort of a sense of desperation and hopelessness. It's just a reflection of complete disarray, leaderless Armenians, and what the same capacity basically that they've had over the past 25 years, and they've used every year. And yes, Armenian army suffered major casualties, but I have to also say that vast majority of those casualties, they could be recovered. I'm saying it in a cynical way, but vast majority of Armenian soldiers who died, well, 45% were draftees, and most of the rest were reservists. None of them were sort of professional soldiers. I mean, there are some professional soldiers losses as well, but Armenian professional units did not have destructive casualties. Okay, they still exist, and they could be rebuilt. It's just a matter of organization.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, like I said, if you don't have public interest in this, public interest might be about ending the Armenian statehood as we know it, and just inviting Russia as making Armenia Russia, rather than to like remove the confusion whose territory this is. If Russians would want to take that territory, call it Russia, and I don't know, Armянская область of Russia or whatever, and bring in the army and just rebuild the place, I think that actually might be the only realistic outcome out of this. Because the Armenian public shows that it has no interest in doing it, unless it's compelled by people like Kocharian or Vazgen Sargsyan. And they don't like to be compelled to do it, That's why those two guys were so hated, and the Kocharian is still hated, because they compelled people to do things they don't want to do, like die for their country or work for their country and all these other things.
Let's go a little bit into the international response, since we mentioned CSTO, Artyom. We were looking at different statements from different centers of the world. U.S., for instance, issued a statement saying that it expects Azerbaijan to withdraw. However, it mentioned also that we don't like to see troop movements in disputed territories, which was an interesting term that they used. Does the U.S. think Syunik is disputed? France, on the other hand, was one of the strongest responses, but it was all verbal. Macron, in a tweet and a Facebook post, whatever, in Armenian as well, said that Azerbaijani armed forces have crossed into Armenian territory. They must withdraw immediately. And I say again to the Armenian people, France stands with you in solidarity and will continue to do so. It seems like surreal. I don't know what that means. But Jonathan Lecote, Armenia's French ambassador to Armenia, posted a Hovannes Shiraz poem about us being in the mountains or whatever. There were also reports that France, offered military aid and UN Security Council involvement, but we haven't seen anything yet. EU issued a very watered down statement calling it, both sides should refrain from provoking things and mention the word disputed territories. and Russia is complicated. We talked about CSTO, so Tatul, I wanted to actually begin with Russia. Can you tell us what Armenia's interactions with Russia have been so far in this? Because obviously, I don't think France is going to send its warships to Armenian mountains.
Yeah, of course. We should understand that in this part of the world where we Armenians live, I mean Republic of Armenia, the only two countries which can interfere is Russia and unfortunately is Turkey. United States is very important global player, but we are very far from the United States of America. Europe is also not close, and we don't see any interest. Just words, verbal words. The only player is from our side, let us say, and let's assume is Russia. Why Russia behaves in this manner? I think because we delegate all our interest, all our negotiation tools to Russia, and they are negotiating with Turkey and Azerbaijan instead of us. So yes, Armenia is a strategic partner of Russia, but that doesn't necessarily mean that in every aspect, in every issue, Russians and Armenians' interests are the same. So, as a state, unfortunately, I'm blaming Robert Kocharyan, first of all, and Serge Sargsyan, and moreover, this disastrous government led by Nikol Pashinyan. They gave all our sovereignty to Russia, to Moscow, and now Russians playing their game. Well, I think that Russians will protect Armenia, but they will protect when they want. They can bargain with Armenian territories with Azerbaijan and Turkey, but I think that there is some kind of limit when Russians will not stop Turkey and Azerbaijan to crush Armenia and to annihilate Armenia.
There was some misunderstanding, I guess, in the press whether Armenia officially applied to Russia as part of its bilateral treaties on mutual defense, and whether Armenia also applied to CSTO. Can anyone clarify both of those points?
Hovik, just let me to continue. Just hours before the Azerbaijani's incursion in three directions in Syunik, in Sisyan, in Gegarkunik, in Vartenis, Mr. Lavrov was in Yerevan, then was in Baku, which means that there is some kind of I can't use the word agreement between Baku and Moscow, but in a way, this kind of mutual understanding that this will happen. Yes, Armenia applied, but the Russians' behavior shows that they are not going to sacrifice their interest in favor of starving Armenian nation.
Couldn't the Azerbaijani activities be also in spite of Russia, or trying to sort of negotiate with Russia, but saying that Russia had an understanding? If there's another explanation for the events, Artyom, what do you think?
I think Azerbaijan's actions are driven, probably, in my estimation at least, through Turkey's goading. I think Turkey's put Azerbaijan in a situation where he says basically, go for it. I have your back, just like with the beginning of the war. I don't think Azerbaijan can really, at this point, to say F you to Russia. I mean, these are different weight categories. It's like Usain Bolt boxing with, Mike Tyson. How the result of that fight will come. And I think it's mostly driven by Turkish interests. And Turkey, I think, is dictating Azerbaijan's moves on this, creating a whack-a-mole situation where they're throwing so many different problems at Armenia that Armenia is just basically overwhelmed at how to deal with this. So I don't think this is in spite, but I don't think also that Russia was not aware of what was going to happen. Russia has its own goals, Russia has its own interests, and I think they may have had an advanced warning on what Azerbaijan was going to do.
Can I just return to this again? We need to keep in mind Russia's focus on Armenia. If Lavrov could spend 1 day a week on Armenia, that seems too much to them because it's just such a small place for them. They have a conflict brewing with Ukraine right now. There's still shooting happening. I saw reports just in last week there were artillery exchanges between Ukrainian and Russian forces in Ukraine. There's a bunch of other issues happening domestically. I'm sure there are all kinds of fights going on in the government. If you think that they're focused on this, I'd be surprised that they are. This is typical MO of this conflict over the past 25 years. What just happened in the last few weeks happened, on a number of occasions in the previous years before 2016, every year, basically. It's just the question was that at the time, you didn't have video evidence of this, you didn't have redeployments. Maybe it wasn't happening on as much on Soviet Armenian territory, but Soviet Armenian territory doesn't count. Armenia starts and ends where Armenian forces stand. If Armenian forces don't stand there, nobody stands there. It's a free land. They just go and get it. It's like Oklahoma in 1850s or 60s, whatever it was. People just going and claiming land. That's all. Russia has no need to be involved in that at all. They don't care what that border is going to be. If Armenians don't care what the border is, why should Russia care about somebody else's country?
Yes, as a matter of fact, Emil, the couple of Russian analysts that I've followed on this topic have said that they don't think that Azerbaijan's activities are aimed to invade, but rather to precipitate bilateral negotiations between Armenia and Azerbaijan. So they don't think that either the CSTO or Russia will intervene, corroborating your thought that they think we should defend our borders before they care about it.
Once again, there were no Armenian soldiers there. Nobody got pushed out. There's no Armenian population there. I don't know. Is there anybody there? They just walked into empty territory. Why should that be controversial for anybody?
Yeah, and the Armenian shepherds have become the surveillance technology now.
No, I mean they always were.
Yeah, and like echoing Emil, there's in the United States the adage, God helps those that help themselves. It's like Russia helps those that help themselves. And at this point, it doesn't look like Armenia is, helping itself.
So, I wanted to quickly talk about media coverage. The incident was initially reported by a low reputation media. And what was, while more, I guess, responsible media, sent queries to the MOD for information and were kept waiting by the Ministry of Defense. Initially, it was reported much worse, saying that there was active fighting going on. We had casualties or, wounded. But anyway, then when the MOD did respond, it was mixture of denial, then ambiguity, and misleading information. The National Security Service was right after that came and said that anyone who spreads false information will be jailed. Meanwhile, pro-government media and commentators accused the media of spreading fake news. Some media channels went to Ishkhanadzor, the village, which is 15 kilometers from the area, and said, see, nothing is happening here. So I don't know what's the commotion. Pashinyan finally was announced the incursion, as I said, shortly after midnight. Tatul, I wanted to ask you, since you're dealing with this on day in, day out, how do you think the media covered this, and what was the government's role in informing the public? How did things work out eventually for this incident?
Well, now I'm changing my now I'm with a new media, and unfortunately now we have no that kind of capacity to travel. That's why I didn't travel the days when happened in Ishkhanasar, in Sevlich, in that area. That's why I'm sorry for that. From one hand, in Syunik region, there is some kind of restrictions imposed by the Armenian intelligence forces. And on the other hand, we see that the pro-governmental media don't want to present the situation as it is on the ground. Of course, there is also fake news. Well, we should understand that the previous government or opposition, led by Hovik Manucharyan and Ter-Petrosyan, they are using every opportunity to discredit Nikol Pashinyan, and I can say that yes, we have some kind of fake news, exaggerated news coming from Kacharyan Ter-Petrosyan sponsored media. This is reality. This is true. But on the other hand, we see that that the response of the pro-government media is what happened? Just Azerbaijanis, they walked into the deep Armenian territory, which is ridiculous for me. For the first time, probably since 1992, when Azerbaijani forces occupied the part of Republic of Armenia, namely Artsakhan. This is the after 30 years. After 30 years, we have a situation when Azerbaijanis, without using any kind of armor, just walking deep into Armenian territory, and the response is like we have no government, no armed forces. This is my
Well, the
response.
government, it's not just, no response. I mean, the government actively accused opposition media of media terror. It said nothing like that is happening. They were flat out denying that this was happening until Pashinyan finally admitted.
That's also
Isn't that
true.
the case?
That's also true that we have that kind of media terror, and the media terror is coming from all sides, honestly to say. But yes, when you behaving in this manner, like nothing had happened, Azerbaijan is just entered the Armenian territory, and so on, so on, so on. This is the situation. Yeah. But on the other hand, yes, we have media terror, of course.
Let me just remind everybody that we always had media terror. The current prime minister is the media terrorist in chief, right? I mean, he was terrorizing the previous government's every publication he put out. Of course, maybe he didn't
That's
have the
also
sort
true,
of reach.
Emil.
He didn't have the sort of reach as we, but I distinctly remember when I stopped believing Haikakan Jamanak was when they wrote that the Armenian forces had given up 7 villages on Tavush border. And if I'm not mistaken, Tatul, you were the one who contradicted that reporting. This was in the early 2000s,
Yes,
I think,
yes,
maybe middle
yes. I
2000s.
remember it very well. Moreover,
Yeah.
Emil, I remember when Haikakan Jamanak, namely Nikol Pashinyan, write a short article in the front page saying that because they didn't know that Fizuli partly divided between Nagorno-Karabakh and Azerbaijan, and they read an article in Azerbaijani media which says that in a village of Fizuli region, and Nikol Pashinyan wrote that Azerbaijanis, occupied some part of Fizuli region. I remember that also very well. But Emil, here we have a situation also for the first time. As a journalist, I want to be honest. All of us, I mean. For the first time now, we have more than 10 Armenian channels, and probably 6 or 7 of them from the morning to the night to 25 hours, they are saying that Nikol Pashinyan is a traitor. And we haven't this kind of situation before. This is also reality.
Yeah, no doubt about that. No doubt about that.
So most of the media, mainstream media, is now on the hand of Robert Kocharyan and Ser Sargsyan.
There is no such thing though, Tatul. If you look at from the perspective of what public consumes. Public still primarily consumes media that's friendly to Nikol Pashinyan, not the ones that are friendly to Kocharyan. So even though
90%.
Kocharyan might have a TV channel, Tsarukyan has a TV channel, I don't know, Republicans, I don't know what they have. They don't have that kind of an impact on the public of Armenia the same way Nikol Pashinyan has the impact on the public of Armenia today.
What does it mean? What does it mean that public didn't trust Kocharyan and Sargsyan?
Yes, exactly. And the main reason is that they were the power, and the power automatically the person in power automatically raises suspicions in Armenia, and the opposition exploits that, and that's going to continue. There's no surprise there. It's a normal course of life in Armenia. What's not normal is that Armenia is as leaderless as it is today. That's different from what it was before, and that's of course the Armenian public is paying the price for that. without maybe realizing it to this day.
So one of the topics that we wanted to go on next, but I don't know if it's worth it because we covered it tangentially, is Lavrov's visit to Yerevan and Baku. Is there anything from that visit that we didn't cover that's important to talk about?
I would point out one thing is that the visit was a very protocol visit. From what I could tell, there were no gestures made towards the Armenian opposition, which was important. The Russian government could say there could have been a meeting with the Armenian opposition, as for example, we had some prehistory of this one. American diplomats might meet with Armenian opposition in the past, or Russian government seems to be okay with Pashinyan. They don't seem to be having a big issue with Armenia being leaderless. So I think that's a significant aspect of this.
Why not just a Zoom call then, Emil? Why come all the way to Yerevan and Baku?
No, they're back to normal. I mean, diplomats like to visit. That's what they do. I mean, they visit and they go through the protocol meetings, meet with the president one-on-one, get gossip, etc. It's just a normal diplomatic effort. And of course, there is the agenda. They have these two declarations that are not implemented completely, particularly the latter declaration about reopening the rail or whatever the trade routes. So they're discussing stuff. I mean, their agenda is not limited to that, right? There might be some other issues where they're, I don't know, more connected to their direct relationships with the governments and the countries, etc. So I mean, there's no surprise that I would visit. I mean, that's okay.
I just want to add that Nikol Pashinyan is Mr. Yes for Russians. So because now Nikol Pashinyan is losing popularity, and he will lose in coming days and in coming weeks. That's why the Russians will protect Nikol Pashinyan, because he can't say no to Russian. That's why Nikol Pashinyan is good for Russians now. But this situation will change, and Russians will change when Nikol Pashinyan will lose his popularity. Of course, they will change Nikol Pashinyan. But coming back to Mr. Lavrov visit, I will remember that visit because just he left Baku, the Azerbaijani side making incursions deep into Armenian territory. This is symbolic for me.
What is the meaning, do you think?
Well, I can't explain. I can't say that there is an agreement between Russians and Azerbaijanis that after Mr. Lavrov visit, they will, incur to deep Armenian territory. But on the other hand, it means that Armenia is really a minor place for Russia to pay attention in a 24-hour in a regime, So this is my understanding.
Yeah, I think we have to be cautious not to create a conspiracy out of every visit. Certainly, what Aliyev would do with Lavrov coming in is just to take a temperature of what is the latest, how's Vladimir Vladimirovich doing, and all that stuff, to make sure that there is no conspiracy against him brewing. So if his soldiers are on the move somewhere, he might be extra cautious, or he might not be. It might be normal. As this is a normal move for them. This is not an extraordinary move. They didn't capture an Armenian populated area. They didn't even behead anybody. So this is as normal as it gets. What they're doing is not beyond extraordinary. I have to repeat that again. This has been done every year since the ceasefire, and now we again have ceasefire, and they will continue doing it. And there shouldn't be a surprise that they're doing it. Another thing from the Russian angle about these visits, you have to keep in mind, why is Lavrov even visiting Baku and Yerevan? Lavrov really doesn't have that many places to visit. Right now, Russia is basically out of the most of the developed world, and the undeveloped world is gripped by COVID and all these other issues. So, I mean, unless there's some other places to visit, he just visited.
So let's talk about electoral politics. Electoral alliances in Armenia are forming. Political landscape in Yerevan is shaping daily, and we have just weeks before the expected June 20 parliamentary elections. The main forces preparing for the elections are looking to be the Civil Contract Party with Nikol Pashinyan, which has decided to shed the My Step alliance and run as its own political party. Just today, we had Armenian National Congress and Levon Ter-Petrosyan announced that they're going to be running with Ter-Petrosyan being the prime minister candidate. Then we have the former president Robert Kocharyan running in the Hayastan Dashing or Armenia alliance along with ARF and the Armenian Revival Party. The Republican Party of Armenia is teaming up with Artur Vanetsyan, and they're going to have alliance called Bati Vunem, and Vanetsyan is going to be their prime minister candidate. Prosperous Armenia is going to run by itself, and Bright Armenia, I think, so far at least, we don't think that they're going to form any alliances. Emil, with the threshold for the coalitions being at 7%, does it really make sense for the Republican Party to form a bloc with Syunik? And given that collectively they're polling, I think, about 22% right now, and what do you think is the RPA strategy? I think that the threshold for a single party to get into parliament is 5%. So wouldn't make sense for them, the RPA, to run just by itself?
Perhaps Tatul or somebody else could clarify it, but there were just amendments made to the electoral law, and from what I remember reading, I don't know if that was completed or not, the threshold for political parties was lowered to 4%, and for the blocks it was raised to 8%. So basically,
that was but that's after 2021, so it will start.
So it doesn't count this time around.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
the only thing that changed is the proportional system. That was the only thing introduced for these elections.
Okay, either way, Armenian elections is sort of a motley crew kind of people. There are some people that have just run until they die, and Serge Sargsyan seems to be in that category. Levon Ter-Petrosyan seems to be in that category, and then you have sort of the government and then the main challenger. So this election is between Nikol Pashinyan and Robert Kocharyan. Nobody else is in this fray in any significant way. I mean, there might be Tsarukyan, Marukyan might play. Tsarukyan most likely is going to play sort of kingmaker between the two. Who he allies with might have a majority, again, depending on what the results are going to be. Everybody else is just going through this. I mean, I remember so many different blocks. Not too long ago we had the Oro block, the Ohanyan, Rafi, Oskanyan block, right? I mean, it was just sort of a very random kind of coalition. I think this is very random coalition like that. If we look further back into the past, I remember the unions of industrialists and socialists, in 1995 elections, and all these kinds of other blocks that everybody's forgotten probably. But the Republicans don't seem to have anything to offer. Serge Sargsyan doesn't seem to have much of a interest or energy, and it seems like they weren't able to overcome some kind of lingering tensions with Robert Kocharyan to just say, okay, we'll just delegate our people to be on your list, or find some, or maybe they just couldn't agree that they would be high enough on the list or whatever. As far as Levon Ter-Petrosyan, it is clear from his statements today that for him it's as bad to have Nikol Pashinyan and sort of destroying Armenia as it is for Kocharyan to come back and have a shot at actually rebuilding Armenia. Both of those outcomes for Levon Ter-Petrosyan would be tragic. So he's, in this sort of to kind of fight for his legacy and make sure that he has a voice in all of this, or has some kind of presence in all of this. So that's kind of the lay of the land. It's between Nikol and Robert, but everybody else is sort of jumping around.
What is Levon Ter-Petrosyan's stake in not having Robert Kocharyan come back to power?
Well, first of all, I mean, Robert Kocharyan already forced, together with Vazgen Sargsyan, forced Levon Ter-Petrosyan to resign. That was never forgiven or forgotten by Levon Ter-Petrosyan. Number two, of course, in 2008, Kocharyan stopped Ter-Petrosyan from coming back to power using force against protesters, but basically stopped and quashed him. So that was a second defeat. Mm-hmm. And now the third time, Kocharyan might come back into power and actually put the country back together. I don't think he can, survive that, Levon Ter-Petrosyan. I mean, it's...
so it's personal.
Of course it's personal. It's a very small country. It's all about the personalities. So for him, that's why he was trying to he's got this what's the Levantine or kind of approach where he said all ex-presidents should come together and sort of denounce Nikol Pashinyan, but at the same time agree not to run in the elections, while Kocharyan is the only one who can really challenge Pashinyan. Obviously, that move was intended to remove Kocharyan from the election. That's kind of the situation. Unfortunately, I don't see much beyond that.
Yeah, since we're talking about Levon Ter-Petrosyan, I wanted to ask Tatul, are you sort of close with the ANC, and what do you think their position is going to be in these elections? And also, do you think that they have a chance of even getting the 5% threshold?
Well, Hovik, we have about more than a month. We don't know what will happen in coming days, and it's probably for the first time in Armenia's 30-year history that Ilham Aliyev is playing a major role in Armenian internal politics. So I don't know what will happen. I'm sorry saying this, but I don't know what will happen in the Armenian-Azerbaijani border. So I think this kind of incursions, well, it's a very harsh blow to popularity of Nikol Pashinyan, and Nikol Pashinyan is losing and losing. You know, let me say the following. I think that yes, the struggle will be between Nicole and Robert. This is clear, and in a way they help each other, because the most of the Armenian population just don't want to hear the name Robert Kocharyan. Because of Kocharyan participation, they are going to vote for Nikol Pashinyan. So this is reality. This is sad reality of Armenian society, internal politics. So in this moment, I think Levon Ter-Petrosyan probably will have a chance to overcome 5% threshold. I think well, Nicole and his team will be in the first place. I'm talking as the elections is going right now. I don't know what will happen after 2 weeks or 3 weeks.
But if the Armenian National Congress does get any votes, would it be correct to assume that they would be stealing Nikol Pashinyan's votes?
No, no. I think they will receive the votes who don't want listen the name Nicole and close to that kind of name like Nicolas, Nikolaios and others name, and just hate Robert Kocharyan. And they are probably going to vote.
So it's the undecided crowd that was probably not going to vote anyway.
But on the other hand, we should understand that Levon Ter-Petrosyan is the first president of Republic of Armenia, the founding president, and during his time we had successes in Nagorno-Karabakh, and we should also understand that we have at least thousands of people who are supporting the politics of Levon Ter-Petrosyan, and they will probably go and vote for Levon Ter-Petrosyan. I think Gagik Tsarukyan also will be in a new parliament. Of course, they will not. No one will allow him to bribe the Armenian population. But on the other hand, we understand that he is a king at least in one province, and that province is very important. And if we will get 50 or 60% of the votes in Kotayk region, that is 5%. And I think that in the new government, in the new parliament, will Nikol Pashinyan, Robert Kocharyan, Levon Ter-Petrosyan, Gagik Tsarukyan, and let's see what will happen with Edmond Marukyan. I don't know. We have not clear and surveys. Right now, I think at the moment, 4 parties will overcome the threshold 5%. Namely, Nicole's party, Kocharyan's alliance, Levon Ter-Petrosyan, and Gagik Tsarukyan. This is my understanding. But what will happen, let's see in coming days. Probably, if someone will join Ter-Petrosyan or Marukian, we should wait and see what kind of alliances will be in coming days and coming weeks.
Tatul, for the thousands of votes that Levon Ter-Petrosyan may get during the elections, who do you think he will get them from mostly? Will it come from the Kocharyan side or will it come from the Pashinyan side?
Well, I don't think he will receive any vote from Kocharyan side of any vote of Pashinyan side. Nicole and his team and Kocharyan and his team just hate Levon Ter-Petrosyan, as Levon Ter-Petrosyan hate Kocharyan and Nicole Pashinyan. He will receive the votes of from different segments of Armenian society.
Are you saying those people would not vote if Levon Ter-Petrosyan was not in the race?
Well, probably they will go and vote for Tsarukian or for minor parties for Marukian. I don't for Sasnatzarer, for example. I don't know, but we should understand that yes, let's say in this way, if 50% don't in Armenia don't want to hear the name Levon Ter-Petrosyan, other 50% think that Levon Ter-Petrosyan is a wise man.
I have to say that I disagree with this analysis. It seems to me that the logic of our Armenian electoral processes is the follows. We have kind of emerging opposition candidates. We had Vazgen Manukyan, Karin Demirchan, Stepan Demirchan, Leon Ter-Petrosyan, Rafi Ovanesyan. None of them sort of fired the second time. There's like one-time fire situation. So I think Leon Ter-Petrosyan is going to be playing similar role to what Vazgen Manukyan played in 2008 election, where he wasn't able to really sort of get on anybody's radar because it's sort of past. I mean, that's what the electoral polling shows. He's not in any of the in any way, shape, or form visible in the polling. And I have to say, the hate here is really primarily one directional. Levon Ter-Petrosyan has major reasons to hate Kocharyan. Kocharyan does not have major reasons to hate Levon Ter-Petrosyan. He beat him twice at least, so I don't think he has that kind of negative emotions towards Ter-Petrosyan as the other side has towards Kocharyan. And you could actually see that if you saw that film that came out shortly before the war about Kocharyan's role in the war, etc. It was an effort to also rehabilitate Ter-Petrosyan role in the war and sort of
Was
bring
that
him
the
onto
TV5 documentary?
Yes. So that's
Okay.
that. There is a little bit different dynamic. It's not as black and white as Tatul, I think, said.
Okay, well, I'm sure we'll talk more about this, every show because it's going to be electoral season. But I wanted to close off by going to Artyom. We talked a few weeks ago to Tevan Pogosyan, who had just accompanied Armenia's ombudsman to Arman Tatoyan to Syunik, and he sort of shared the gossip with us that Tatoyan rejected sort of the political path for himself, at least for now, which I think broke our our heart. But he's seen as a very positive public figure right now. Do you think there are other people like him that have a chance to pull Armenia out of the abyss, and maybe even someone like Armen Sarkisyan? I don't know. Who, in your opinion, has the ability to lead Armenia in the next, short term and long term?
Wow, that was the coup de grace question. I am a very pessimistic person, and honestly, yes, it would be great if someone like Tatoyan would be in the parliament and form a group within the parliament that actually puts minds together and hands together to get the country out of the predicament that the country finds itself in. But having said that, I don't think at this point anyone can actually challenge Pashinyan to the degree that Kocharyan and the quote unquote former regimniks would be able to. So yeah, I mean, which doesn't mean that Armenians, in Armenia do not have the talent or the talented people to get into the parliament. But the situation is such that to be in the parliament at this point, you, just like in politics everywhere, you have to have some financial backing. And how many people have that? how many people can afford running, a decent campaign and become publicly visible and have a positive messaging and being able to, based on their charisma or their policy proposals to get into the parliament or into the government to do something positive for the country. So it's limited resources. It's poppy eat poppy world, really. I can't even say dog eat dog world because, compared to other political situations, it's Armenians.
Puppy. Puppy
Yeah.
is a very cute way to describe
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So Armenians have deployed puppies and political
Maybe hyenas,
puppies.
I don't know.
Yeah, hyenas. Yeah, that they can serve some ecological good use, but puppies are just cuddly. So it's like we have a government that is using a manual to a fax machine to operate a tank. So I'm very pessimistic about this issue. I wish I could go back and run for office, I guess. Not
Okay.
that
Well, please
anyone would,
come.
not that would anyone elect me except my mother, probably.
Well, please,
Well,
all of you
I'll give you my vote
come and
if I
change
could.
the political landscape in Armenia. Please come and
I
change.
would love to, Tatuljan. I would come tomorrow. Let me see my
Artyom for
kids.
parliament. That's it.
Yeah.
Let's go. Tatul, any final thoughts before we close?
Well, I think that for the first time we have a very black and white situation before the parliamentary elections, and let's see what will happen. Quite competitive elections, because for the first time I have never seen any kind of important parliamentary elections. Before, for Armenians, the most important was the presidential elections. Now, for the first time, we have elections, parliamentary elections, which is very, very important, and they will, the candidates, the parties, the alliances will use their everything to, to have representation in the coming new Armenian parliament. But what kind of picture we'll have 30 days? Let's see. And let's hope that we'll have competitive and not rigged elections.
All right. Well, we'll have to wrap it up here for this week. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for inviting again.
Thank you,
Thank you. Bye
everyone.
bye.
Goodbye and thank you.
Thanks, and talk to you next week.
That concludes our program for this Week in Review episode. We hope it has helped your understanding of some of the issues from the previous week. We look forward to your feedback and your suggestions for issues to cover in greater depth. Contact us on our website at groong.org or on our Facebook page ANN-Groong or in our Facebook group Groong-Armenian News Network. Special thanks to Laura Osborne for providing the music for our podcast. On behalf of everyone in this episode, we wish you a good week. Don't forget to subscribe to our channels, like our pages, and follow us on social media. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.